Now, the other big news coming out of SmackDown on Friday involved Kevin Owens, who was scheduled for a singles match against Randy Orton at WrestleMania. And it started really early in the day on Friday. There was a Twitter report from PWN, Pro Wrestling Nexus, that Kevin Owens was said to be dealing with an undisclosed injury, and there was no set timeline for his return. It said with just days until WrestleMania, his scheduled match against Randy Orton is now in jeopardy. And WWE has reportedly discussed backup plans for Orton, but no final decision has been made yet. And that was the report. And they pointed out that Kevin Owens has not wrestled a match since Elimination Chamber on March 1st against Sami Zayn when they had that unsanctioned match. And then slowly but surely, others like Dave Meltzer and Sean Ross Sapp, they confirmed that there was an injury. Meltzer said that it was said to be significant. And then on SmackDown, we found out how significant it really was. Nick Aldis was in the ring to introduce Kevin Owens down to the ring to make an announcement in his own words. And Owens said that he has been doing this now for 25 years. And in those 25 years, he gave everything he had every single time he set foot inside this ring. He's had the chance to experience things that he'll never forget and take care of his family, but there's a price to pay for that amazing opportunity, and that is the toll that it takes on their bodies. Every guy and girl in the back has paid that price at different times, and now it seems that it's his turn. For the last 4 months, he's been dealing with a pretty serious neck injury. And they didn't know how serious it was, but this week they found out, and now he's got to go have neck surgery. And the timing could not be any worse. Not being able to get in the ring with Randy Orton really sucks. He thanked WWE for giving him the chance to come out and say all of this because he doesn't know when he'll be able to be out there in front of the people again. So for now, he wants to say thank you, and he's sorry. Definitely not the kind of promo that you would cut if you were this big, heel villain character on the show. This was Kevin Owens coming out there and being very serious and being very upfront and kind of bearing his soul to the audience. And clearly he was devastated. I mean, you could just read it on his face. Randy Orton's music hits just as Owens is getting ready to leave. He made it as far as the apron, and then he got stopped in his tracks by Orton's music. And Orton slowly makes his way down. The two of them share a brief stare on the apron before Owens drops down and heads to the back. And in the ring, Nick Aldis broke the bad news to Randy that with the injury to Owens, Randy no longer has a match for WrestleMania. And Orton, head in his hands, he's hunched over, he looks devastated. And then came the RKO out of nowhere, and he drops the SmackDown GM. And then he looked up at the WrestleMania sign, and then he looked back down at Aldis on the mat before leaving. Now let's focus on Kevin Owens here for a few minutes. Owens recorded a podcast interview with Robbie Fox for his My Mom's Basement podcast on Friday. This was before SmackDown, so it didn't get released until Saturday, but he confirmed during the podcast the nature of the injury. He said, over the last few months, I've had an issue in my matches that made me go, I think something's not right. And then we looked into it and found out, yeah, there's something going on with my neck. I know for a fact there's a specific moment where it happened because in December, I did a full body MRI just on my own for curiosity, just to see if there's anything that I should be aware of. And it's the thing where, yeah, you could see, if you have issues with your bone structure or whatever, or your organs, anything like that. And at the time, the report came back that my knees were shit, but I've been well aware of that for a long time, so there's no concern there. But there's something about my spine and mild to moderate stenosis, which I showed it to the WWE doctors, and they're like, yeah, for what you guys do, everyone's got a level of stenosis. Everyone on earth walking around has a level of stenosis. Yours is your spine and your neck, and everything looks good. Everything looks good for what you've been doing. You're fine. So great. And I felt great. But then in January, I had a match. And in the match, two things happened that really jarred my neck. And that's when the issues started. So I knew there was something, and then we ended up doing an MRI this week and found out that, yeah, it's serious. So I think the match in January is what did it, because I had an MRI a month before and everything looked fine. Now, he didn't say who the match was against, but he only had two matches in January. One against Rey Mysterio and the other against Jimmy Uso. And in the match with Mysterio, Ray got his knees up on an Owens Swanton bomb, and he took the brunt of the impact right to his spine. Like, not even the back of his neck or the back of his head, like to his spine. And he also took a hard sunset bomb off the middle rope, which again doesn't look any different than any other rough-looking sunset bomb, because that's a tough move to take in the way your head whiplashes off the mat. But it didn't look like anything out of the ordinary. It's a brutal move, but he did take that move in the same match. So if it wasn't those two spots that he's referring to in that match, I'm sure those two bumps didn't help his case, but that may have been what did it. And that's the thing that's crazy about wrestling, is that you look at the brutal bumps that he took in his ladder match with Cody Rhodes at the Royal Rumble, right? Including the finish, especially the finish. When he got planted through that ladder bridge on the floor, I mean, he looked like he was destroyed. Or the unsanctioned match with Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber. He worked both of those matches with a neck that needed surgery and didn't even know it. And while I'm sure those matches didn't do him any favors, like, those weren't even the matches where he got hurt. The match where he got hurt was just a regular match on SmackDown with no big ladder bumps, no table bumps, no chairs, no plunder, like nothing too crazy. Like, that's what did him in. Now, he didn't specify what type of surgery it is. PW Insider, though, did say that people backstage on Friday were talking about him getting a spinal fusion. He said he figures he's done for the year. He can't say that for sure because he hasn't had a conversation with his surgeon yet. That's going to happen on Monday, tomorrow, in Birmingham. But his expectation is that he has wrestled his final match for 2025. And the next time we see him back in the ring, it'll be 2026. And he says it bums him out, not only because he really wanted to wrestle Randy Orton, one-on-one. They wrestled last year at WrestleMania, but you had Logan Paul in there. He's like, yeah, we had that other annoying guy in there. I was looking forward to getting that one-on-one match at WrestleMania with Randy Orton. But what also bums him out, he really wanted one last match with John Cena. And now that is very unlikely to ever happen. He also said that he was upset that the news leaked early, saying, I woke up to seeing that it was already leaked, and it really upsets me, especially because I know that whoever leaked it is some office employee that shouldn't know this shit in the first place. I told people, like, this is going to leak, and they're like, no, we're keeping it tight-knit. But then yesterday, obviously, some departments had to find out for some reason, and now someone who should know this stuff found out, and it went where it shouldn't. And now they took away my right to tell people because now everybody already knows. So there will be no punt kick. I thought when this news first broke, maybe they were just going to do the angle on SmackDown, and just kind of use that as the storyline reason to write him off TV. They didn't do that. We had no resolution to the Orton storyline, which, it isn't really important in the big picture, but it sucks. Randy Orton sat out for 4 months selling a pile driver, all to build to this one match and that one moment, that punt kick at WrestleMania. And he never got his revenge on Kevin Owens for it. So maybe it was a case where Owens himself went to them and said, can I just go out there and be honest about this and come clean? Maybe that was something he himself wanted to do. But as far as him leaving, and look, it's a very shitty situation. There's never a good time to get hurt. There's never a good time to have spinal fusion, if that's what it is, spinal fusion surgery. That's a major surgery. That could keep him out for over a year. Any kind of neck surgery is a serious surgery. But that one in particular, there's a long recovery period, from that. And that's a tough thing for someone, I'm sure, who is constantly on the road and just wants to be active and involved. And now you're kind of sitting at home and you're bored. It'll give him time to do other things. He was kind of joking in the interview with Robbie about, now I'll have more time, not just to be with my kids, but also to go to concerts. I never get to go to concerts and play with my cars. He's a big car guy now. So, you got to look at the silver lining in it. But this is a guy who has gone out there over the last several months, since this whole story began of him and Cody and, him going heel. And he's done a hell of a job with it. And they had that match at the Royal Rumble, which was just fucking, like I said, brutal as all hell. It was a great match. You had the unsanctioned match with Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber. Great match. And they blew it off quickly because they were building to him and Randy. Otherwise, they could have just saved him and Sami for WrestleMania, but they didn't do that. And now here we are, by the way, in Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Neither one are going to be on the WrestleMania card this year. 2 years ago, they were in the main event of night one. Now they're not even on the show. But Owens is one of their MVPs. He always has been. He's that perfect guy that they can plug into whatever role they need him for. He could be a babyface. He could be a heel. I used to say the same thing about Kane. Right? That's what Kane was for many years. He was a main event guy, and then they kind of phased him down a little bit, but he was always that reliable hand they could go to fill whatever role they needed, and they knew he would be able to do what they needed him to do. And Owens, he always knocked it out of the park. His promo work. The promos with him sitting in his car, and telling Michael Cole, hey, you have to come out here to interview me. And like his promo work was, carrying that entire feud really with him and Cody. And then Cody, kind of stepped up his game. So the work he's been putting in the last few months alone has been, tremendous stuff. And it sucks that, he's injured enough that they're not even, in a position to clear him to even get to WrestleMania. It's like, well, let's just get to Mania. We'll do an angle or something. Like, nope. This is serious enough that you have to have surgery now. So it's just a shitty situation. I hope he gets well. I hope he's able to come back as close to 100% as he can be. But still, even to this day, I feel like still one of the more kind of underappreciated. I don't say underrated. He's not underrated. Underappreciated talents that they have on that roster. Now, as far as what Randy Orton does at WrestleMania, he dropped Nick Aldis with an RKO. Not the first time that this has happened. 2 years ago, when he dropped Aldis with an RKO the first time, he had to pay a $50,000 fine. Now, remember Orton handed him the check? And it was $100,000. And Aldis said, the fine is only $50,000. You handed me a check for $100,000. And Orton said, that's for the next one. Well, the next one came on Friday. And so now Nick Aldis has a reason, unless they want to turn him into a Vince McMahon type character. I mean, God forbid. They want to turn him into a Vince McMahon type of like heel authority figure who just enlists other people to kind of fight his battles for him. You don't really have to do that. Nick Aldis now has a reason to want to get in the ring himself with Randy Orton. If ever there was an opening for him to get back in the ring for even just a one-off, this is it. And for it to happen at WrestleMania of all places, against one of the biggest stars in the company, it would be a hell of a moment for Aldis. Albeit on 2 weeks' notice. I mean, not a lot of prep time for him, but it looks like he keeps himself in good shape. I think that's the match for WrestleMania. There's no need to complicate things. Orton is not going to miss his WrestleMania match after already sitting out for 4 months and missing the Royal Rumble, right? He's going to be on the show. He's going to wrestle somebody. They already teased Aldis as the direction here. There's no reason to plug him in anywhere else on the card. And there's no good reason to plug someone in there who's new. Like, let's say, a debuting Aleister Black. Because I'm sure there's a lot of fantasy booking going on. And maybe plug somebody new like that who returns or makes their debut there. This is a match that Randy Orton has to win. Because Backlash, 3 weeks later, is in his hometown of St. Louis. And there's a very good chance that he is going to be in the main event of that show. Possibly competing for the WWE Championship. So you can't very well have him go into WrestleMania and lose and then turn around and potentially compete for the title 3 weeks later. That makes no sense. Aldis is the safest choice here. One and done. Aldis gets his WrestleMania moment. Randy picks up the win, and onward we go.